of Corrections, Joe Carbullido. Joe, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Chris. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
Did you have a chance to go vote yet?
I did. Early voting.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Oh, good. Okay. So, Joe, I guess we'll just go ahead and give you the floor. What's the latest with COVID at the Islands Prison?
Yeah. So the latest is we retested our post 9. That consisted of 9 prisoners, and we added 10 of our employees to that list just to retest. And the results are, out of the 9 prisoners, 7 tested positive. So 7 more. And then we had 2 employees out of the 10 that tested positive.
And Joe, so these inmates or detainees?
Inmates.
These inmates, they were tested when? Last week?
Yesterday.
Yes. No, when they were tested the first time.
Oh, the first time, Friday, I believe, was
Right.
the.
And so this is something we talked about the window for testing with the COVID, right? That you could be negative, but actually be positive. And so they started exhibiting symptoms when? Over the weekend?
That's correct.
Right.
They started showing symptoms. So our medical staff, like I said earlier, they closely monitor the inmates and detainees that tested positive on those areas, those different posts. And when they started showing symptoms at post 9, that's when we decided to go ahead and set up another retesting with public health's blessings.
Anything new? Any other inmates have to be retested, or detainees, or employees?
No, not that I'm aware of. It was just post 9 that started showing symptoms, and maybe a couple more that, as you guys already know, two were transported to the hospital. Those were also being closely monitored that showed symptoms over the weekend and yesterday. So those inmates are from post 7, which is our isolation facility, and post 16, 1 from each.
What kind of symptoms were they exhibiting?
I'm not too sure. I'm not aware of what the symptoms were. I just knew that our medical staff made that assessment and determination that they needed to be transported to the hospital for further medical assessment or treatment.
What's the status with the isolating of the COVID positive inmates and detainees? Do you have the total number of that, Joe?
So right now, with the 7 additional prisoners, it actually went up to, because previously we had 93. So with the 7, it became 100. But you take away the 2 that were released just recently. We had 2 prisoners that were released. One was an overnighter that tested positive down at the Hagana Detention Facility when we were testing down there. That was in coordination with the AG's office. He was released that same day, and then as an overnighter, and then the other one that was up in post 7 was released because he had already fulfilled his sentence. He only had he was serving a 1-year sentence for a nonviolent offense, and his release date coincidentally came about. So wow. He's one of the lucky ones.
You said one was released. The 2 that were released. There was a media release, I want to say a couple of days ago, where I think it was a detainee that was allowed to go to the government isolation facility. Is that one of them?
Correct. Yes, both that were released over to the quarantine, the government quarantine facility.
Mm-hmm. And so, because they were released from DOC custody, they don't need to have officers watching them over at the GovGuam isolation facility.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. So again, what the total is? It 100?
We're 98 now.
Okay, so
minus
it's 90.
the 2 that were
Okay.
released. Yeah.
And the total of officers?
We have 46 because we had 2 additional employees, one officer and one civilian staff that was positive yesterday when we retested.
And where are you with staffing?
Okay, we remember we discussed this that, and I said that some of the staff were already slowly coming back to work, and as we speak now, more are continuing to come back to work this week. So we have already we're down to from 54 to 22 that are still quarantined. So most of that staff that were under quarantine status have returned to work beginning last week and then this week.
So-
All of our recruits are back already. We have 15 recruits and they're all back to work.
I'm sorry. So how many are still quarantined? The
22
22. Okay, so the
altogether.
22 plus the 46 that are in isolation as a result
That's
of.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
How's your facility
But
over there?
Not all of those are officers. The 46, as I mentioned, some of those are civilian
Employees,
staff
yeah.
and civilian employees, and most of those employees that were just quarantined with an abundance of caution, of course, again, just possibly being exposed. They came back already after being cleared.
Are any more inmates hospitalized, or is it just the two that you told us about yesterday?
Just the two
Just the two.
that I'm aware of, yes.
Are you aware of any officers or civilian staff that have had to be hospitalized?
Yes, I think there were two that I'm aware of. One officer and one civilian staff.
I think you told us also yesterday that a procurement was approved for renovations to the dome.
Yes.
Okay, can you bring us up to speed with what's happening now?
So that already went through the procurement process, and when you talk about government procurement, it always takes a while, but this was pushed through. Of course, there was an immediate need for this, so without of course, cutting through the red tape, we had it just sped up a little bit more, and it was recently approved, and now we're working with DPW to get that dome up and running. So the air conditioning unit, which required a 10-ton unit, is supposed to be replaced. So everything should be replaced there as far as the air conditioning unit. And then we're working with a container to modify restrooms and showers. That's going to be constructed right outside the dome for that facility.
When is the target that you are hoping that all of these renovations will be completed?
It's just going to be dependent on public works, whose engineers are working diligently, and I really thank them for their hard work in coming out and constantly working with us on this, making the assessment and pushing it through. So I'm hoping within the next week or so.
How much is it going to cost?
Altogether, the procurement request that we submitted for both Post 16 and the dome, somewhere around 100,000, over 100,000.
What's Post 16 going to be used for? Also isolation?
Yes, remember we have 70 that are being isolated in there from the testing. So
that's right.
the air conditioning unit is being upgraded there.
I know we kind of just I asked about this before, but are there any plans to I guess professionally sanitize or disinfect any of the posts over at DOC?
We're working, again, we submitted, and that's being pushed through again. We submitted for one of those equipment, the spray with the chemical, to do on our own. So that's been submitted through the CARES Act funding also, and we're waiting for that to move through. So we're going to be doing our own, because the fact that we can't have anyone just come in here and do the overnight spraying and disinfecting. We pretty much have to do our own. So we're going to do it, section by section, with security measures taken into consideration.
What about the discussions about early release for inmates at DOC to try and like lessen the population?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the list already of eligibles have been submitted to our legal office at Adelup, and they're taking a look at that to see, who or how many out of that list will be considered early release, from the parole eligibles to probation, due to lesser offense crimes. But the other avenue that we're working on is testing at the front end, right? Those new arrestees that come in on a daily basis. We're trying to really cut that number, and I've put in a stricter measure. I've talked to both public health and GPD, and we're going to be meeting later on today in a Zoom meeting, discussing the testing particulars. So we requested for a test machine, right? One of those Abbott test machines that's pretty fast, as far as producing results. So we can test as these new arrest confinements are coming in from GPD. We had incidents where a couple of those arrest confinements from GPD that came in were positive, and we didn't find out until, later on when they were being magistrated. So we're going to work together and see, because I don't know how long it's going to take for my request for the test machine, the Abbott test machine, to be delivered from public health side. And then the other side here is with GPD right now. I told them that I think in the interim we can work on trying to get with GMH to test them right off the bat, transport them to GMH and then down to Hagåtña facility, Hagåtña detention facility for confinement after they've tested and are cleared. So those discussions are ongoing today.
But the current process is that when you have an arrestee, they're quarantined.
That's correct. They're currently
14 days?
quarantined at our quarantine area here. Mm-hmm. But just the fact that they're still coming in to the facility, I'm not comfortable with that. I haven't been comfortable with that. But sometimes we don't have a choice. We don't have the capability to test right now, and we're trying to work with what we have again.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The governor actually mentioned that from the very get-go. We both agreed that testing is needed, and she supported that concept. However, that never materialized.
Yeah, I remember when we spoke with Anton over a month ago, I think, when they first did the first round of testing way back of your officers, and he was mentioning that there were those discussions to get a machine over there to DOC. So, I mean, now here we are, still kind of talking
Yes,
about it, but now, the need is quite evident.
yes, yes.
How's the morale over there? Because you have your officers that are working. It would seem more than 12-hour shifts, and just
Well, the schedule, we're on an emergency schedule, right? So we've um, some are working longer hours than others, right? They come in on their days off, and um, we're just at that point where we have no choice but to work with what we have. And I've tried to pass the message out to our employees that we just need to work together as a team and hopefully get through this together. Um, I mean, it's not going to be forever. I don't know how long the pandemic's going to,
yeah.
it could be months or years, right? But at least the predicament that we're in right now, as we stand currently, um, uh, everyone that's been affected or infected, is bound to get over it, right? And hopefully we start to get them back, to work. And those that are quarantined are already coming back to work. And we're not going to be in this schedule for, for that much longer. I'm hoping that our scheduling gets back to normal as far as our workforce.
And you guys, you stood up a information center, correct, for families and relatives.
Yes, that's correct.
Is there?
So those family members that have concerns, only because we were having a lot of calls, we were getting an influx of calls, and they were going to the front office, to senators, to me. My phone was, ringing off the hook, about concerns. So we decided to come up with this information center, through our social workers are now monitoring that and filtering the calls, taking the calls, and answering questions from family that, or whoever it may be, friends that are concerned about their loved ones incarcerated.
Can I go back to post 7 and how there were inmates that had to be retested? Were there any inmates previously that were positive from post 7?
You mean post 9?
I mean,
that was retested.
Post 9, yeah, post 9.
Yeah.
Was anybody
negative? They were negative the first time around.
So
they developed symptoms over the weekend, and because we were closely monitoring, our medical staff closely monitors those that are positive from the different posts, and when they started developing symptoms, it was recommended to me that they be retested. So in consultation with public health, we decided to go ahead and retest.
How many are in post 9 total?
9.
There's total.
That's our minimum out. That's the minimum security inmates that are there. Those are the ones that are like within a year of their sentence, getting ready to be released.
Are these the ones that are a part of the list?
They probably are. I don't know specifically because I didn't see all the names that are on that list. I was just looking at numbers.
Yeah. How concerning is it though for you to know that you had a clean post and now it's hot? I mean,
with this pandemic, it can just turn, a completely different direction, from good to bad, and in a matter of, hours or days. So it's just so unpredictable. So I never really, think about it that much. I just take take it as the data comes in, and I try to run with the data. You know, I don't make assumptions on what I believe could happen, or you know, on a day-to-day basis, because anything can happen. You know, with this pandemic, it's just so unpredictable. So I just take the information, the factual information, and I run with it. You know, and make my decisions based on the facts that's presented to me.
Thanks, Joe. You know, I saw you guys had stood up a line for families to call in to check on the status of their loved ones inside the prison. Can you give that number?
I don't have that number, but I can text it to you
Okay.
later on. I don't have it with me available.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate
I know. Sure, no problem.
appreciate your time. You good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Okay.
Thank
Keep
you.
us posted.
All right. Take
Okay.
care.
It's 8:07. We're KUAM FM in Hagåtña, Guam. To our viewers on KUAM TV, thank you guys so much. There's a whole day of great programming on the way right where you're at, or you can come over here. Come on in. The water's fine. We lit a fire because it's a rainy day.